calling from Los Angeles, and I'm having a little problem under the name ThatUmbrellaGuy. I sent him my phone number at least 20 times in the chat and told him to call me. He ignored me. I'm a man. I filed the report. If you guys could take a look at it and give me a call back, I would love to hear what you guys can do to help us. We really need to kind of stop this guy at least until Monday. I told him to call me.
Rolling up, I'm feeling fly, yeah, I'm so damn fresh. Got that platinum grill, bringing in the checks. Diamonds in my mouth, shining when I speak. That umbrella guy, flossing speaking geek. Ice on my teeth, I'm dripping so hard. Platinum grills, I'm the king of the boulevard. Throwing money in the club, making haters mad. I'm the baddest in the game, no one gets a pass. Ooh yeah. Crushing all these lines, yeah, I feel fly. Rolling on the dubs, that umbrella guy. Iced out flow on the boulevard. You ain't a comic gangster, don't be playing hard. Ice on my teeth, I'm flying so high. Dropping the bass, that umbrella guy. One grill to rule them all, one grill to bind them. Baby, I'm so iced out, gonna blind them. Rolling in town, I'm an army of one. Doing verbal walk-bys, blazing like the sun. Riding in my whip, crushing false accusers. Dropping off the bass on the real abusers. Yeah. Living life fast, no time for the slow. Justice on my mind, stacking up on that flow. Life in the fast lane, no time to blink. Ice on my teeth, watch it when I speak. Chillin' on my rhymes, never missing a beat. Ice on my teeth, yeah, I'm living that sweet. That umbrella guy, bringing the platinum heat. Crushing every hater, no time for defeat. Ooh yeah.
Ooh yeah, indeed. Man, I think I confused people today. We were almost on time. It's so crazy. Today we have a special guest. I've actually been looking forward to this one too. Madam Mayor is back. How you doing, Madam Mayor?
I am well. Loving Tennessee.
I know, it is. Tennessee is one of my favorite places. I mean, you know, I was born in Tennessee. I moved away a little bit. I hated it. I came back. I think the people here are really just, nobody really understands how nice and slow. Like I hear people all the time that, you know, they want to rush me when I speak. I'm like, that's how Tennesseans are. We're slow speakers. So we have a slow lifestyle normally. And most people are nice.
I love it.
How long have you been down here now?
What's it been like, around 2 weeks, maybe? 2-3 weeks. It's just been a blur. And every time we go buy something off Facebook Marketplace, we end up staying and talking to people for 2 or 3 hours.
that myself, just hanging out and chilling, and I don't know. People have some of the most fascinating stories. I like in this area. I like messing with the farmers and stuff. You know, going out. We used to help repair fences and things. You know, I go out to people I know, talk to them. Oh my gosh, man! I did send out there for hours. I'd go out and help them for an hour. You know, we get something fixed, and then I'd end up out there 3 or 4 more hours, just talking about whatever.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Even the people we bought the house from, when they stopped by, we're there for hours just talking to them. It's the neighbors roll by. It's so different than Florida.
Really? See, I've been to Florida for visitation, but I've never actually stayed in Florida long term.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
It's a good thing. Is it the people or the atmosphere? I wonder, like, what's so different about it?
It's so crowded. It's so hot. And everybody's just in a hurry and mad.
That's interesting. You know, I did notice, like, I always thought it was hot, like the humidity in Tennessee. And then I went to Florida and I thought, my Lord, it's like living on a wet sun.
Yeah. It's horrible. It's like you can't even breathe sometimes.
Yeah, that's one thing people don't understand about humidity. I was telling somebody that lived in Arizona. I was like, you know, you guys, they were like, it's over 100 here. I was like, yeah, but it's not humid. It's hot, but it's not humid. Humid just snatches the breath out of your lungs.
Yeah. I
Ugh.
used to do landscaping when I lived in Fort Lauderdale, and I thought I was going to die. And then I delivered mail when I lived in Ocala. It's just too hot for that.
Man, so I caught your last. I guess I don't want to say your last visit. I don't know. Maybe you've been back to that certain little quaint spot in in Florida. Was that your last visit? Actually, the Lloyd rescue.
Yes. Yep. That was the last visit down there.
Whew, that's that's been quite the show to watch in the aftermath, to be honest. Not just the what happened with it, but there were threats about the RV and ownership in the aftermath. Oh,
I can't believe where it's gone. The whole thing is crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I know. I make jokes about it. I keep I keep telling people, I'm drowning in content, like to save me. I need my water wings. But
I know it just keeps ditching out. You don't even have to, you can't make it up. It just keeps hitting you in the face.
no, nobody would believe this stuff.
No.
There's actually been a lot of claims about Lloyd and RV and all of that too. I thought I would ask you about a couple of things, because there have been some pretty nasty allegations out there. And I watched the video myself and I thought, man, what a nice thing for you all to do. I guess let's start at the beginning of that. Like, how exactly did all of that come together?
Well, me and Brett were actually in Alaska and we had planned to be there another 3 to 4 weeks. And Lloyd had started texting us and telling us about all the problems going on and that he needed to get out of there and he feared for his life. And we were the only people he trusted, and he thought we were still around. So he wanted to meet right away in Chiefland. And we're like, we're in Alaska right now. There's nothing we can really do. But he didn't trust anybody to meet up with anybody else. So we were going back and forth texting him for a couple of weeks. And then when he finally decided he'd have enough courage to get everything together and start trying to get out of there, he fell and broke his hip. So
I don't know. For me, I guess it wasn't registering. He was asking to get out of there before the hip injury. So
yeah, for a couple of weeks. And he was so afraid of what Lynette was going to do to him and the whole situation that he feared for everything. And he just thought he was never going to get out of there. And it's hard to comfort somebody when you're so far away.
right.
And we didn't know what to do. So we were talking to Jeremy and seeing if he could help the situation. And Lloyd was afraid to talk to Jeremy because Lynette was telling him all these horrible things about Jeremy. So it was hard to get him to trust anybody. He was so in fear and brainwashed. It was a terrible situation.
It's fascinating when you mention that. I'd never really thought about just the people on the outside that are hearing all of these terrible things about Jeremy and hearing all these terrible things about George, how they might actually perceive things, because that we've heard a lot of things about, supposedly actionable things going on. And I would think, making people think that the man is a monster, that he might do something horrible, you couldn't turn to him. Yeah, that sounds pretty actionable, I guess. Yeah.
It's so sad that all that stuff was being told to him. I was so upset because he was still in Shady Oaks. He lived in Shady Oaks originally. We moved him from Naples and brought him into Shady Oaks. It's been a while. He was living next to his brother, and then he was having problems with his brother. And after we sold Shady Oaks, he ended up moving over there. And when I had heard that, I just couldn't believe it. And I said, this is not good.
Yeah, I heard a little bit about he said on the, again, I don't know all the, I hate to say it this way, but I'm going to say side players because there's so many names. Like
there is.
Yeah, I started keeping a list. I was like, wait, who's this person? Who's that person? And when Lloyd's name came up, I looked back and I'd heard a little bit there, but I wasn't really familiar with him, and he had mentioned having problems and ending up asking for help, and John basically had offered it to him, and he'd ended up in that property. I thought, oh my God, that's terrible right there. And then 5 months on that property. I thought, my Lord, that's even worse.
Yep. And they were just using him for all kinds of money and using Harley because he felt so bad for her. They would use that to get more money from him to pay for this, that, and the other thing. And he's a generous guy. He always helped his brother out, his nephew out, and then he ended up helping them out. I don't know how many thousands of dollars he helped everyone out with. And he doesn't have that much himself to be doing that for everybody. It
Yeah,
just
he was mentioning how
shameful.
much money he got. Like I forget it was $1,300 or $1,400 a month, and I thought, man, that's nothing compared to what he's. I saw he paid for electric bill. All right, 300 and something dollars. He had given $100 for fleas. He'd given money to put on for food for John, and I was totaling, and then the $140 he was owed. I thought, man, I've heard right there, just in that setting, mentioned like right at $700 just at that little bitty go. That's supposed to be for quote unquote free living, not so free.
Right. It would have been cheaper for him to go anywhere else. So it's just insane that, he's an elderly man and he had health problems already when he moved onto the property. Just taking advantage of him. Sad.
Yeah, at 78 years old, that whole situation. I don't know. I sat down. I re-listened, and actually we went through over 2 days. We went through the messages that had been sent to Jeremy. Because I wanted to go, and at first when that came up, I was like, well, that's not really relevant. It's relevant for him, but it's not relevant for me to talk about. But then all this stuff with the RV came up. All the threats on ownership, and I was like, well. They mentioned it at least 4 times during that I remember. Maybe there's more mention of it. So maybe I'll go through, and some of the stuff that's mentioned in there is I'm going to call it tragic. It's sad, it's scary, but ultimately it's tragic.
Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff that he was telling us, it was just breaking my heart. And he was just telling us how crazy she is and the different treatment that Harley was getting. And he almost didn't want to leave the property to leave her there. And it was just so sad. And then Brett was just like, let's just go back and go early. We have the house we're going to close on. Let's just go back there and we can help the situation and
really
get it going.
That's really kind of you all. I can't imagine many people that would be like, hey, I'm over here. I'm out in Alaska. I'm going to come home early and, help out some person, again, them, but still that's a random person. That's a really good statement on you guys too.
Yeah, it bothers me so much when somebody's hurting like that and they just feel so alone. So, and he's a good guy and he's always done nice stuff. So I just wanted to help him.
There was the accusations were that all of you planned a what was it? Let me think of how it was said. That you planned I guess it was scripted, supposedly. That you scripted a rescue so that you could. Give me 1 second. I'm pulling up the statements about Travis. That way, this would be for you all. So you could quote invade her property, invade her privacy, and incite strangers to call CPS. What do you think about those allegations?
I think that's insane. First of all, originally, me and Deanna never even planned on going on the property. We were just going to be out on the street while the guys went in and got the stuff. We didn't even know that we were going to have Lloyd there, and all that stuff just spurred up at the last minute. And then the cops said that Deanna needed to drive the vehicle onto there, and we all needed to go over there. So it's like, okay, we didn't want to go on that property. That property is disgusting, and there's all kinds of stuff in the ground. Previously, when Brett has gone on that property to help, he got a nail through his shoe. It's not safe at all. So we didn't want to be on there. And
Wait, so he picked up a nail before off that through his shoe. That's horrible.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we've talked about safety of other people that live there. You know, so if just people walking around pick up nails, that's scary and horrible.
yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in the ground all over that property, and there always has been. I don't know if you could ever clean it up. It's insane, because the people that own the property before used to dump all kinds of stuff on there, and then they apparently clean it up and then just dump more stuff on there, and the whole thing was crazy. And people have been calling CPS, so I don't know how we would have started anything. That's been going on, because clearly everybody can see what's been going on that property. And right now I know they're throwing out a bunch of smoke screens so that everybody will stop paying attention to Harley and the fact that she's living in conditions she shouldn't be, because they don't want you to focus on those things. So they're just throwing all these other things out so that people will focus on that. But it's not a safe place for anybody to be at all. So
Well, I have never heard you say to anyone, hey, I want you to call this place. I've never heard you make any kind of public statements that
Nope.
incited another person to do it. Have you ever been told by anyone? Again, all this. So I was reading through the veteran nation claims. You know, when you put them all together, you kind of get a view of what this narrative is. And the narrative is that Jeremy Hales is pulling the strings and trying to get everyone to call. Have you ever been asked to do that, to incite people to do that?
absolutely not. I've never told anybody to do that. Nobody's ever asked me to do that. She has claimed, like quite a while ago, that I have made several calls to them, which I never had. The only time I ever did is after being on that property, because how can you witness that and not?
Well, they also made the claim that you and Jeremy, basically, you're indistinguishable. You're almost like the same people. And I was like, how does that work again? You know?
That's interesting.
Yeah, I was like, you're not living there. You know, you're in Tennessee, as you said.
I don't
You're-
even eat that much ketchup, so that would never work.
Yeah, that would be a deal breaker for me too. I think I'd be like, yeah, you know, I can't abide all that ketchup. I'm sorry about that. Now, I was curious. So, in the beginning of the RV video, it seemed like you all had an expectation that that everything was set up ready to go. Like there was another officer that was going to be there. That again, everything
Yeah.
had been arranged. So
Brett called the sheriff's office several days prior and spoke to the undersheriff, and he was actually supposed to be out there. And so when the other officer came, we weren't really expecting him, but we thought everything was just going to be pretty smooth. And like I said, that we would have never had to go on the property, me and Deanna, and we didn't know we'd have to have Lloyd there. And then when he was just pretty much going to turn us away and try to make us go through the courts, I'm like, we're going to be hitting the road soon. We have all these people happen to be there right now to get this done. So let's get Lloyd and get this going. But that poor man sitting in that car for all that time, that wasn't right.
I didn't understand why they couldn't do, video conference, like he could show them, hey, this is me, here's my ID. Like,
Yeah,
why they
that's
had to
what
go.
Deanna was saying, because they could have had one of the nurses from the nurses' home in there with him on the Zoom call. Like, that was very unnecessary, in my opinion.
Well, and, Lloyd is talking about this being time sensitive. So if you guys, there's the money aspect, obviously, but on top of that, it's very time sensitive. You all are arranged, you all are free, you're there,
Yeah.
you're ready to do it. do it now? And it was like, no. I wondered at first, like watching it, I'm sure you were thinking, oh, are we going to be able to get this done?
Right. I didn't think we were. And if it was scripted and planned, none of us even brought any water or Gatorade or anything and didn't plan on being there all day. It was like an all day ordeal. Everybody was dehydrated and sick. And yeah, if we planned that, it was horribly planned. I mean,
You're like, dang it, man. Where's our safety advisor for this script, right?
right. I mean, who didn't bring the Slurpee machine? We could have had ices and everything going.
Oh man, I actually didn't think about you all not having any drinks or anything. Like when I think back to that video, I don't remember any of you carrying around water, anybody stopping to get a drink, you know. I don't remember anything like seeing any way that you all could. Oh, that's awful in that heat. Whew.
Yeah, and even Lloyd, when we brought him back to the nursing home, his shirt was soaked. You know, we stopped somewhere to get him something to eat on the way back, but he'd been sitting in the car with nothing to drink, and it was terrible. He just wanted to get into bed.
Yeah, well, I was watching when you all drove in, you know, and this is before Lloyd becomes involved, and I was looking at the roads. You know, those conditions look. I mean, they're rough. Obviously, these are back road conditions, and driving Lloyd through that, making him go out there, that seemed like torment. You know, the man's just had surgery and everything.
Yes, when we put him in the car, it was hard getting him in the car. And then when we got back to the nursing home, I took off his shoes and put some socks on him. And even just lifting his leg to put his socks on him was hurting him. So I could imagine how it felt the whole ride.
Yeah, could you tell that he was in discomfort? I mean, again, you know, he seemed like a pretty tough fellow. You know, he's been through a lot, you know.
He's a trooper. But yeah, he absolutely was in pain. That wasn't the best of conditions for him at all.
That's awful, man. That's awful. I saw Jeremy, by the way. He was like, that's my ketchup and my mayor. I was like, indeed. Now, there were allegations that when you went out there to film, that was all planned because you were invading the property and you were invading privacy. So why exactly would you film that?
We have to film everything. First of all, the cops tell you have to film everything because they don't believe anything and you need to have proof of everything. And especially with her, you need accountability because she would be saying all kinds of off the wall things if you weren't recording it. So you have to. Even the cops tell you have to.
Yeah, yeah, and the cops actually made it pretty clear, like what the rules were, what you could not record in, what you were allowed to record in. I thought the instructions were pretty spot on. You could understand exactly what you were expected to and not to do.
Exactly. Yeah, he made it very clear and asked Lloyd's permission if we were allowed to do that and told us we weren't allowed to enter her living area, which no interest.
Yeah.
Don't want to do any of that. You know, I didn't even want to see her or speak to her or anything of that nature.
I'm sure that causes a lot of, not just, you know, Lloyd talked about anxiety and being afraid. I'm sure for yourself, I'm sure that causes a lot of anxiety having that wild card, I'm going to say, being on that property, knowing what could happen, not what did, but could happen. Right. I'd be afraid.
Absolutely, because she's made plenty of threats to everybody in the past and always let everybody know that she's always packing, and she's been very verbal about that. So when you have somebody who is of a certain mental state and they're always packing, you don't know what could happen. So that was very, not so much fun.
Well, yeah, especially, you know, I'm sure that would get countered by, well, there's a police officer there, and I've seen I'm going to call it ineptitude. That's going to be my word. I'm going to say they're very inept. They haven't done a lot in a lot of other situations where I thought, you know, we would probably see some action. So even with a police officer there, I would still be anxious. I would still be
that
Scared
didn't
for my safety.
mean much to me. Plus, he was all over the place, walking all over, and she could have done something while he was on the other side of the yard. So that was no help thinking that he was there.
Now, there were claims also, since they said inciting people to call CPS. I seem to notice that you all were trying not to film the child, like you were going out of your way. I mean, that
Yep.
seemed to be very intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely never pointed the camera at her. She had come out of the house and I had the camera pointed the other way, and she was talking to me, and I never pointed the camera at her. I was very careful. Even I didn't talk. I waved hello to her, and I didn't want Lynette to get all in a huff. So I didn't try to carry on a conversation with her or anything, but she still came running across the yard acting like we were filming her child and everything else. And the camera was never pointed at her. That was very intentional. I'm not there to put her on film. I never have meant any harm to her. So that was ridiculous that she even made that big scene.
Yeah, quite the opposite, I would say. Like everything that you've said is concern. You're talking about concern for, not wanting to put on film, not wanting to endanger, again, not calling in random things. You've just expressed concern.
Yes. And I still have so much concern for her. I don't think she should be on that property. I don't think John or Lynette are capable of raising a child that even had normal things going on, let alone a compromised immune system and health issues. And I don't even understand why you would move a child with these issues to a town like Otter Creek. None of that makes any sense at all.
Well, I've been talking about red flags, and one of the biggest red flags for me right now is John Cook. She's made claims about John Cook. I was going back to the beginning. I wrote them down so I wouldn't get them, wrong in any way, shape, or form. And she had said, quote, my ex-spouse that I share my land and stuff with, they know his abuse toward me, verbally, emotionally. It's not a good thing. She also made statements about how John brought RSV into the home, knowing that he was sick, trying to strengthen her immune system, And then there's all these new allegations, the things with Wes and the firearm. You also have the inappropriate touch. That's disconcerting.
Yes, and why would you allow anybody with any of those things around your child? None of that makes sense. She made comments way back when she talked about Landon and his girlfriend coming to the property quite a while ago, well over a year ago. And she had said at that time that the bathtub area that she had these wooden fencing around there, and she said she would need to get the wood tightened up because she couldn't have his girlfriend coming to the property because John would be looking through the spaces and the slats while the girl was taking a bath. So why would you have a child around somebody that you make these claims about? That makes no sense. She said things about him not being allowed to be alone with her. He can't be with her while he's not wearing a shirt. She can't be sitting on his lap. Like, again, why is this person around her? So why is she in a vehicle with him alone for hours while they're in a courtroom?
Right.
It's very confusing.
That's crazy. I don't know. I guess, like I said, all the different people in this and everything else, some of the statements, like I may have seen them and I forget some of them, but the statement about John watching, the 18-year-old that's on the property, and then you have the allegations about inappropriate touch. That's actually quite frightening.
It is. And like I said, all my concern is for Harley. If John and her, Lynette, want to live that way, that's their business. But
Right.
that child, that's not okay.
Yeah,
At all.
100%. I didn't realize how long it took you all on that property too. You know, it was discussed. So, what was the amount of time that you ended up on the property for, you know, removal of Lloyd's items?
I want to say it was 2.5 to 3 hours. And then we had also, when we first got there, me and Deanna left to pick up Lloyd and came back. That was roughly another hour. And then when we left, we had to go bring him back. So all in all, it was quite a long day.
That, see, even watching the video where, you know, they claimed to, and I thought this was fascinating. They claimed that was heavily edited, you know, that you had gone through. And I was like, okay, well, of course you cut out portions where Lloyd had to be picked up. There was the end with the trespass, you know, you cut out certain things. You speed up a few things here and there, but
it was so long.
Right.
You know, I figured nobody wants to watch all that dead stuff in between there, so.
Well, yeah, and the allegation is that you're doing, you know, you all are doing it for clicks. A 3-hour video, though, still, if somebody did sit there and watch it all, that'd be much more, you know, you get much more watch time out of that. So, I mean, if you're doing it just for the clicks,
then it wouldn't make sense that I cut anything out, would it?
Yeah. No, it wouldn't at all, you know. So, with the property, one thing I thought was interesting in the aftermath is the RV is apparently there's some contention about the RV now. Was there anything brought up at all that gave you the idea that, you know, that she wanted to say that RV was hers?
Nope. There was absolutely nothing. And if that were the case, why wouldn't she have brought that up to the officer from the very beginning?
Yep, 100%. You know, in fact, I've got that claim.
I mean, she ended up keeping his refrigerator and everything. Why wouldn't she have brought that up?
Yeah, when you're willing to argue over a refrigerator, but you won't, you know, you won't defend the property you say that you own. You've seen this statement aimed toward Travis? Have you seen this thing, by the way?
I have not. I don't follow so much of this stuff.
Yeah, I don't blame you, to be honest. One of the things both you and Travis have made statements of, I don't want drama. Drama comes to you, but you're not aiming for drama. You know, it seems like, unfortunately, you get a lot aimed at you, though, actually.
Sure do.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard your name, you know, brought up. I've made jokes about how they made it sound like you're stomping around the woods like Bigfoot at night, you know. Madam Mayor's out there creeping.
I go to sleep early, so.
Well, this one, I'm going to read this real fast. So if you haven't heard that, I want you to hear what's stated here. And that way you can see, you know, the allegations. And this was aimed at Travis, if you don't then. So, Dear Mr. Willis, further to my message sent to you on GoFundMe, I am placing you on notice of legal action against you for the theft, they call it theft of the RV, from Miss Preston's property, in addition to claims for invading her property, invading her privacy, and inciting strangers to call CPS. Miss Preston had a valid enforceable contract with Lloyd Campbell whereby he would live on her property rent-free with $500 a month credit toward $9,000 agreed purchase price of the RV. Once Mr. Campbell left, the balance would be paid to him at $200 a month. As he lived on Miss Preston's property for 5 months, he is owed $6,500 to complete Mr. Preston's purchase of the RV, payable at $200 a month for 32.5 months. Based on your public videos, it's clear you're in control of the RV unless you ensure it is preserved pending resolution of Miss Preston's claim and not sold or donated. You will be liable for damages for interfering with Miss Preston's contract and for her loss of the RV. If I don't receive a response, it notes, by the 26th, which would be a couple of days ago. I assume you intend to give the RV to the veteran pictured in the GoFundMe, and will proceed without delay to initiate legal action against you.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, what do you think about that? That's pretty crazy, right?
Did they attach the contract?
They did not. You know, and fascinatingly enough, there were the claims. In fact, the lawyer themselves said, Travis, he must have leaked that. No, it was actually attached for some reason to Veteran Nation. Just a random channel out there. They ended up having this sent to them. That's how we ended up finding out about it at all. And as far as I'm aware, there has been no contract whatsoever that's been attached.
Wow, that's just nuts, because the police were there, so how could you steal something? So did the police, I guess, were part of the whole thing to steal it?
Well, the argument, so there was an argument on Veteran Nation. Veteran Nation actually, he had, I hate to call it, I'm just going to call it a conversation. Even though I would call it other things, I'm going to call it a conversation with the guy who wrote this, who says that he is a legal representative of Lynette. He has a contract with her, you know, a signed piece of paper. So he said that the police officer, he didn't know what he was talking about, essentially. You know, this was invasion of property and privacy, that you had no business there, and that police officer, it didn't matter what they said. They could bring action against anybody for it.
Wow. They seem to make a lot of things up as they go.
Yeah, it'd be kind of hard to be like, you're in the wrong, Madam Mayor. You know, considering, again, there's a police officer there the entire time, and you're going out of your way to follow their rules.
Yeah, we called them to have them there just so we could avoid any issues.
Yeah, so you guys are the ones that called them, asked them to be there, and everything else to meet you at the property.
Yeah, absolutely, because we didn't want any problems at all. Nobody wanted to even have to be there or do this, but we had to help Lloyd to get his stuff, and the cops arranged it. So I don't know what.
Were you surprised when you got there and that stuff wasn't arranged and you had to jump through all those hoops, though? I mean, it seemed like you were pretty taken aback. All of you were.
Yeah, and it was quite a mess because Lloyd had told us that the kids had been staying in his RV and that they were keeping it clean and all these things. And then when we got in there and saw the mess in there, we were like, oh boy, they've been lying to him about that. They've ransacked the place. It's a disgusting mess. And his totes were all over the place. And I'm quite sure that she kept quite a bit of his stuff because I know he had more stuff than that when he was at Shady Oaks. So, and then just trying to get everything together with the awning, and it was quite an ordeal. And then all the electrical cords that were laying all over the place, that's a fire hazard.
That's what I thought right off the bat. Fire hazard when I saw
there was
just
one
video
laying in water.
Oh, Lord.
And then over by the shed where they were all plugged into, it was hot under where it was plugged in. There was wires going everywhere. It's just a complete hazard. But I said, you have a child that's running around and you have this hot mess of wires. You have a wire running through the water. There's flies everywhere, wet clothes piled up on the side of the RV. It was just, wow.
You talked about the condition of the RV. Did you notice there's been a lot of discussion about fleas, lice? Did you notice that? Like, did you notice anything with that? Just, you know,
I wasn't in there long enough. I just went in there, looked around for the keys that I was looking for, and I got out of there.
Yeah, it looked pretty awful. It was sad, you know. I would say it was shocking, but it really, I wasn't shocked. Like everything else outside, I wasn't shocked at the inside if people were allowed in. But I thought it was really sad.
Not really. I mean, I've been on that property before a long time ago when me and Brett were trying to help her clean up her property. And we went over there several times to help her do different things, bringing the tractor over, and she would have bins of rotting food everywhere. So the place has always been a hazard, and there's always been disgusting, rotting food everywhere. Not much has changed.
That sounds like it would smell very bad.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
luckily have no sense of smell, but everybody around me was gagging, and even I can tell by the looks that something smells, so I still had the face on that it stinks, but luckily I couldn't smell it.
Could you imagine, that's just people going on the property and thinking, oh
No,
my
I
God.
couldn't live there. That's horrible. And then there was like that one pool that had brown water all in it, and
That was so gross.
I just, again, you have a child with all these health problems running around, and then there's ducks running around, and it's not a good atmosphere at all.
Yeah, I noticed even like when you drive into it, it's giant mud holes. You gotta bog your way in, basically.
Yeah.
That's right from go, and then right in off to the left, it looked like trailer or whatever full of garbage. I think that was garbage, and I thought, man, weathered garbage is what that looked like, and
Yep.
I mean, ugh, gross.
And I can't imagine what the turtle pins and all that stuff looks like, because that's way off into the corner. We didn't go anywhere near there. I don't want to see that. It's probably pretty bad over there.
Yeah, I saw the message exchange again that had been sent to Jeremy, talking about how they didn't have food for the animals, which is again quite sad. They talked about dumpster diving for food for the animals. Yep. I was like, what is that rescuing them from exactly?
None of that makes any sense. How you can be running a rescue and you're diving around for food. So it means that they need to be rescued.
I was curious too, with all the items that got pulled out and just, I'm going to say, discarded on the ground, that were thrown right in front of the police officers. She was just dragging things out and tossing them aside. Was anything damaged that you all knew about there?
I didn't see that anything was damaged. I know there was tools that fell out of the one thing all over the place, so I picked them back up and put them in there. But the way she was winging all that around while holding a phone, talking to somebody, blew my mind. And she's got all these discs mixing in her back. I have a messed up back from delivering mail, and I had to take all those totes off the shelf to move them over to the halfway point to bring them to Travis. And I couldn't lift the shelf like that, and she has no discs in her back while holding a phone and could do it with one hand. So that's pretty amazing.
Hey, man, apparently they gave her super strength. That's pretty awesome. You can have problems. I didn't realize that back problems would give me super strength, huh?
But
there was
makes a lot of claims.
Oh yeah. You said you'd had claims like, we talked a little bit. Our first discussion really was more about corruption in Levy County. I was curious, you had that vantage point, you saw so much behind the scenes. We didn't really talk about this subject very much at all, and you mentioned claims thrown your way. Like, what kind of claims have been thrown your way by these folks?
Well, originally she was going online and she was talking about me and Brett making false CPS claims on her. And John was going on all the different Levy County groups calling us maggots. And then they were going online giving fraudulent fake reviews of the campground, saying all kinds of horrible things, trying to mess with our business, and just saying all kinds of things. She was telling people that I was her best friend, and she told me things that she never told anybody else in the world. And I went around airing her business, and she posts all her business online, always has. And that's what ruined her when she was running for the board. She was posting all kinds of stuff, and all the people in the town are like, are you sure we should be voting for this lady? Have you seen what she's posting? And she posts pictures of Harley all over and then claims everybody else posts this. It's her. She's the one telling everyone her crazy business. And we were never best friends. I tried to counsel her because she lived in the campground originally, and she was texting me off the hook all the time with all her problems. And so I was trying to be nice and trying to help her. And I told her she needed to go get counseling. Maybe she should talk to somebody at the church, trying to steer her in a direction because she's got so much going on. And this poor child is getting the brunt of all the screaming, yelling, cussing, and she's not seeing any love. So I was trying to be helpful. I was printing stuff out for her all the time because she would email me that she was needing money to pay her electric bill. So she would be asking the different places that help you throughout the county for money to do that. So she was having me print out the applications to do that. I never charged her for the ink I was using or my time. I helped her fill out her paperwork for the running for the board because she didn't understand how to fill stuff out. I was nothing but nice. And then she went all over the internet just trashing me, Brett, and our business and calling us all kinds of things, saying that we were sleeping with the then mayor and his wife.
What?
Like all kinds of ludicrous things. And she would slam that guy too. And then all of a sudden now they're like besties, and he was ready, showing up at the courts to testify for her. But before, she was hanging signs about him in the yard and how terrible he was.
It sounds
None
like
of
she
it
was. Well, it sounds like she was her own worst enemy. You know, she's blamed. There's a certain person she likes to blame for almost all of her problems, but it sounds like she was her own worst enemy when she was running for council and also in the community itself.
Yeah, and then she blamed everybody else, and she blamed us for her not winning a seat, and everybody's at fault but her.
I remember hearing a tale about how you went and actually saved one of their lives. You went over to help them out. They had an emergency.
Yeah, me and Brett were actually at the Bible study at the Otter Creek Baptist Church on a Wednesday night, and she was texting, and she said that John had collapsed. He was living in the shed at that time, and he collapsed on the floor, and she didn't know what to do, and could we come over? So we left the Bible study and went over there. And he was sweating. He had urinated on himself, and he's on the floor. And she hadn't even called 911 at that point. She calls us, and so we helped pick him up off the floor. And I picked him up. He got urine all over me, and I told her to call 911. So she got the ambulance out there. We got him loaded into the ambulance. He was just talking gibberish because I guess he had sepsis at that time. He was septic, and nothing he was saying was making sense, and he had a high fever, and they had told her that if we hadn't have come over there and gotten him in the ambulance, that he would have died. So she was thanking us for doing that. And then we went back to the Bible study. I sat on the other side of the room from everybody because I was full of urine. And she is texting again that there's no power in the shed. Can we come back and look at the power? So we finished the Bible study and went back over there and fixed the power problem. But, you know, those are the thanks for that. We got trashed.
It sounds like you were asked to do quite a bit, you know. If not directly, it sounds like you were asked directly, like a lot of other people have been, hey, can you help me out with bills, or, you know, find me another way to get this stuff covered? And it sounds like you all helped quite a bit in this.
We did. And we went over there with the tractor and moved stuff. We even when John was in the hospital after that, she needed to get the yard cleaned up because she was afraid her daughter was going to call CPS on her, because at that point her daughter had been there and there was a thing where she threw her out of the moving car in Chiefland, and now the daughter was going to call CPS on her, so she needed to get the property cleaned. So she wanted me and Brett to come help her do that. So we had borrowed a dump trailer from the vice mayor at the time. Well, he wasn't even vice mayor yet, but we borrowed this dump trailer and we planned with her that we were going to come there and help her clean the property. And the morning we're supposed to bring this dump trailer over, we call her and she's out running errands in Chiefland. And she just wanted us to go over there and do it. And she wasn't even going to be there. And we said, we're not doing that. And then she's like, well, just drop the trailer off over there and I'll get to it later. So she's already told us that she's had meth heads on the property stealing stuff. So we should just leave somebody's dump trailer that costs thousands of dollars over there, no problem. So at that point, Brett still tried to go over there and work it out. And we went over there and she went off on us. She was screaming at us, just crazy. And she says, get this out of here. And I said, listen, Brett, pack it up. She wants us gone. I'm not doing this anymore. There's something wrong with her. She's screaming at us. I'm done. I don't want to see this lady or hear anything more. That's it. I'm wiping my hands clean. So we packed it all up and left. And then she proceeded just to trash us all over the internet.
What was the timeline on that? How many, how long did you deal with them before I guess you were like, I'm done with this. I can't do it anymore?
Oh, it had to be, I want to say a good 6 months or more. It was quite a while. And I just kept trying and trying, but you can only do so much. And I know I did way more than most people would have. But I felt so bad for that child. And she just was all the time talking about everything was John's fault. From the minute you met her, she talked nothing but bad about John, and she didn't want him on her property. She wanted him gone. Like, the whole thing was crazy, toxic mess. When they were in the campground, they were always screaming at each other. The people in the campground were like, when are they going to be out of here? The neighbors hated it.
So
it was bad.
So you all at least observed the verbal altercations. I mean, I guess you couldn't help but observe those, but it's fascinating from go. I mean, she was basically saying all these things about him.
Yeah, from the minute we met her, she was just saying bad things about John. And she just wanted to buy him out of the property, and she wanted him gone. And he would drink all the time. So he always had one of those cheap plastic bottles in the back of the bed of the truck that had alcohol in it. He just drank it straight.
So you observed the drink. So that's been one thing, I guess, in retrospect. At first, I thought, man, that whole incident with Wes, that's, it's terrible. Again, 8-year-old, you have all these people. But then the drinking, there have been allegations from multiple people that were on that property about the level of alcohol consumption. So you yourself saw, a lot of alcohol consumption too.
Yeah, and when they first came to the town, they were coming to the town hall meetings, and he would go in there drunk to the meetings. And he's the one who actually started filming the town hall meetings. But Lynette said, she asked me if I could start filming them because John was shaking too much because he drinks too much.
Oh, wow. That's wild. Well, it frightens me to know, when I go back and I look at the video with Jeremy, I look at the altercations from, John going on there, thinking about, again, alcohol being part of that. This is my own theory on it. No one else has said this, but I thought with what Wes said, I always wondered if you're going to lose anyway, all of that. I was like, is he so intoxicated that he thinks that that person might have been not Travis, but maybe Jeremy that he had an altercation with? That's why you have a pow pow pulled out at the moment.
Yeah, because not only does he drink, but he takes pills. And then you have that, guns, a mental condition, all that together. And I know he takes pills because Michelle or Lynette would even text me that he was trying to sell his pills through the mail, and she had caught him doing that, and she was going to report him to the mail clerk because that's a federal offense and all this stuff. So it's just a complete hot mess. And even Lloyd said that John would be drunk already before noon, and by early evening he was falling all over the place. So nothing changed.
Yeah, Lloyd, he mentioned some concerns, in that phone call to Jeremy about the child, what he had observed happening with the child. He mentioned other things as well. I mean, again, I don't know if it's proper. I'm going to ask you this: if this is not proper, you tell me. Did he mention any concerns to you all as well, like specific items?
Yeah, he said that she locks her up either in the shed or the trailer 23 hours out of the day, that she's only allowed to come out about an hour, and that she keeps her away from people like as a punishment, and that she's just always locked up in that trailer, and she's always screaming at her, yelling at her, and that he even said something about her throwing her across the trailer one time.
Yeah, he mentioned that to Jeremy too. I heard that, and I thought, my Lord, you have an observer on the property that's making these statements. Like, how much has to be noted before somebody in a position of authority actually pays attention?
I don't understand any of it, and I don't understand how all the police officers that have come out to that property, they're mandatory reporters.
Yeah.
How could they walk on there all those different times and see nothing wrong? Like, it makes no sense.
It actually doesn't. I mean, that's why a lot of people have said, things like conspiracy and everything else, because, people as an outside observer, it does not make sense. It's either ineptitude to a level that, I mean, we rarely see to that level, or something else. And, people question that quite a bit. You've lived in Levy County, though. I mean, first of all, I want to ask you this. The people around Levy County, this reflects terribly on them. And anybody I've seen in videos and stuff, they've been the nicest people ever, it seems like. So this doesn't seem like a par for the course kind of thing happening there. They seem like the exception. These folks and other bad folks around, they seem like the exception. They don't seem like, the standard people that you would encounter.
No, there's a lot of good people that live around there. It almost seems like all the worst of the people are corralled into this small little town of Otter Creek. And the unfortunate thing, and I don't know if it's because the old mayor, Russell Meeks, is related to two of the county commissioners, that a lot of stuff got overlooked, and that his family has lived in that area for so long, and they have the good old boy system, and they're so heavily interweaved that they just overlook everything these people do. It makes no sense, because there's good people in there, and I just don't understand why the good people want this to be in their county like that. They could easily stop it. If the cops quit entertaining all this from the get-go, they could have shut it down a long time ago. It makes no sense.
It doesn't. I mean, again, and you've been there. Like I said, even from an outside observer, that doesn't make sense.
So it almost seems to me that maybe with the good old boy system, a lot of things must have been done, that different people know about different things that shouldn't have been done, and maybe they're holding one over on them. So a lot of bribery, possibly, because otherwise it makes zero sense.
I wondered, as a citizen there, They've got to get sick of all of this insanity too. You just want to go through your life, not have to deal with the chaos that it's a very limited amount of people bringing chaos. So I'm sure regular people just get tired of all that.
They do. And even the people in the town, when I was first running for the board, because I would ask them, why aren't you running for the board? Why don't you change things? They were all afraid of Russell, and they just kept saying, this is the way it's always been. This is the way it's always been done. But they're not happy about any of it. And I'm like, there's more of you good people than there are the bad people. Why don't you all get together and do something about it and run for the board? And they would say, well, I'm not smart enough, or I don't like to speak in front of people. And it was almost the mentality of when you've been in an abusive relationship and they just are very shut down and brainwashed, and they don't want to speak up for themselves kind of stuff going on. So I think when I ran for the board and they saw stuff changing, now you have other people that came onto the board, they felt more empowered and that they could actually have something different and do something better for themselves. But there's a lot of them, they don't want to come out into the area for people to judge them, I guess, and they just want to hang out low. So they'd rather have stuff going on bad instead of speaking up for themselves. It doesn't make sense to me.
I think, if you're dealing with corruption, I think people would be, there'd be a little fear in that for sure. If I speak up. Well, I mean, for me, you have Jeremy. Jeremy was very vocal about this, and look what's happened to him. If me
Right.
is just the average person, what might happen to me?
And lots of people said that in the past, when they tried to speak up, he would shut off their water and things like that. So he held that over them. And then I guess he was getting sexual favors for the water bills and things like that. So they were just so afraid, and they just said, this is the way it's always been. And I just can't deal with that. So I'm like, well, that's not going to work for me. So
I knew I knew somebody in another small town that stepped in, tried to change things, different circumstances, but still tried to step in, trying to change a lot of things, and the resistance that they met, it was just horrible. People tried to railroad their lives, and they ended up moving out of the area. And when I talked to them recently, and they said, it was almost like a bad dream. Do you sometimes feel like that all of this stuff was like a bad fever dream?
we used to joke that we were in the twilight zone. So when we left, we even said we were busted out of the twilight zone.
It does sound like a Twilight Zone episode, to be honest.
And now
I mean,
here I keep telling everyone it's like I'm on a different planet, and I'm not even joking. I'm being so serious because everything is completely opposite here. It was like being stuck in some weird hell portal. We kept joking too all the time that there's the portal to hell is in Otter Creek somewhere. And when I would go to the church services in Otter Creek Baptist Church, I'd tell the pastor and all the people, please pray for Otter Creek because there's just a bad, evil something going on here.
yeah, Tennessee's a nice place. Like I said, I've lived here for a long time, and even when I was away, I moved to Oklahoma, and it's flat. And if you lived in Oklahoma and you're listening, by the way, I'm not insulting. This is just my perception. It's just I hated it there. I like it. I like the people in Tennessee. You actually like what you're describing. I find good neighbors like that. I have some really good neighbors. They try to help me out, and it seems to be the par for the course.
It's great. I said, I wish I would have moved here like a long, long time ago.
Well, do you? So going back to the Lloyd Harvey stuff, for a minute. When you were there, there was dispute about the refrigerator, of course. Was there dispute of anything else? I mean, again, they made allegations that things had been cut out of video and stuff. So, did you hear any other disputes of items?
No, the couple of times, even when I had the officer ask about his sawhorse. She had come out the door and she said, just take whatever he says is his, just let him take it. I don't care. So I don't know why she didn't let him take the refrigerator that was clearly his based
Right.
on that. But no, there was no dispute about anything else. But I don't know what was inside the barn-dominium thing where all his stuff was, because no one was allowed to go in there. So whatever she decided she wanted to keep of his in there, she did. I don't know.
I'm going to start calling it that. The barn dominium. I never know what to call that structure. I'm actually going to write that down. The barn dominium. I like that, to be honest. Though I remember her saying, like, just take whatever. You know, I
Yeah.
remember when the buckets came out, you know, and she was like, I don't know whose this is. Just take it. Just take it.
Right. And that's what when Brett, there was one tote that had a cord in it, and he's like, does the tote go to? And she's like, just take it. And he's like, just trying to ask her and be nice. And she was just nasty, but it was ridiculous.
There was
But the refrigerator was clearly his. I don't even understand why there was that dispute about that. But to be honest, from my standpoint, I would have hated to see what the inside of that refrigerator looked like based on everything else. So I'm glad that nobody opened it.
I kept thinking, you know, I don't remember who on the video said, well, you know, it's nice on the outside, so, you know, maybe it's nice on the inside. And I thought, man, that's having a lot of faith
I
in
know.
everything.
When I heard that, I was like, yeah, I don't think so. Please don't open it.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for a level of horror to step up. It was amazing though. Like Lloyd was going through and saying, "Hey, I have Amazon receipts. I can show you. This is my refrigerator. I have proof that it's mine."
Right. And me and Brett moved that refrigerator and had it at Shady Oaks, so we knew it was his too. And he had all those receipts from Amazon. None of that made sense because she said that he gave it to her.
See, that's another thing though that goes to the RB. I mean, she's going to claim that, you know, he gave the refrigerator. Then obviously she didn't feel that the RV was hers at the time. You know, now in the aftermath, there's been claims, but at the time, it certainly didn't feel like that to me from anything I heard.
No, she made zero claims about it. So that makes no sense because she would have clearly said something right away about that.
Now, there was the necklace incident too. Like when you talked about that at the end of the video, that was really sad. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It was sad. Lynette had come running out, and it looked like she had something in her hand that she was just going to throw at one point, and then everybody was like, who's going to go over there to get whatever she had? Nobody even wanted to go near her. So I think Travis was the one who ended up going over there. And then Lloyd says, that's the cross that I bought for Harley. Me and her used to bump crosses, and he started to cry, and it just hurt him so bad. And the only reason she did that was just to hurt him. Like, why would you do that? And then to take that away from Harley, that has to make her feel like she did something wrong.
Sure.
Because that was a good memory that she had with Lloyd of bumping crosses. Like that's just a horrible thing to do all the way around. So she ended up hurting Harley and Lloyd with that. So Lloyd was so hurt that he handed me the cross and he said, here, take this and give it to somebody who needs it. And so I had put it in my pocket, and I was walking around with it the rest of the day. And I was just like, I said, that's just Harley's cross. I'm not going to give it to anybody else but her. When she gets rescued from there, it's hers, nobody else's. So I'm just holding it still to give to her when she does get rescued off that property because it's hers.
It kind of I don't know, it hit me in my feels, because the only thing that bothered Lloyd, he was bothered, obviously. He seemed to be, to me anyway, just observing, and I would think he would be in physical discomfort. And,
Yeah.
he's emotionally discomfort, like scared. I don't want to be here. I don't know what the heck's going to go on. I saw some of those text exchanges. I would be worried. But the one thing that really got to him was that.
Yeah, that really bothered him, and it made him cry. And I saw him cry a few times throughout that experience. Like when we first picked him up, he was crying because he's just so worried. He didn't know what to do. And then he was so afraid that she was going to come near him. He didn't want to go onto the property. So he kept saying, he told the cop, make sure you keep her away from me. I don't want her coming near me. And he was just so worried. And I told him, I said, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. And I just hugged him, and he was crying. And even after, when we were driving him back to the nursing home, he was just so upset. And now he's so happy. It's great to hear from him. But he just didn't know what to do that day. And all I could do was hug him and tell him everything was going to be okay, and that we were going to take care of it and not to worry anymore.
That's awful. Him being asked to be on the property anyway. A person that's making some extreme allegations. He's the victim in this situation, and to ask a victim to go and to be exposed to all of that, that's not just horrible. That seems wrong, like legally wrong.
Yeah, he was pretty traumatized. He did not want to go onto that property either. So, but
yeah, he thought he had a movie crew. I did like the fact I was like, yeah, you all stood up for that, because they were saying, hey, you can come back with a moving crew that is not associated with Jeremy. Which he could have come in with a totally neutral. Assuming he had the money, which obviously with the amount of money he has, he doesn't have all of that. But assuming he did, she could have still kicked those people off too and said, hey, they're associated.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's what would have happened at that point too. But the whole thing was just ridiculous.
And then you all get trespassed on.
Yeah, that's what we said. We got trespassed, all of us, for the first times in our lives, get trespassed from somewhere we never wanted to be in the first place. So.
I was amazed by that. Like, for me, my gut instinct, I don't know. I was just like, I wouldn't hang around for that. Like, what were we all just being like overly cooperative? Is that why like, y'all stuck around in it?
Yeah, we were just trying to cooperate with the officer, because there's been so many problems with the officers not doing anything or blocking stuff. So we just wanted to make sure everything worked out, and being respectful for Lloyd and making sure everything worked out for him. If it was me, I would have just left, but I'm trying to be respectful to make sure everything goes through for Lloyd and give him some peace of mind.
In the aftermath of that, you talked about Lloyd. Like, so you said like he's doing so much better now.
Yeah, and he's with his daughter, and his daughter is so happy to have him with her. And it's a shame that it took this much to get him where he should have always been. But to see him now, he has a light in his eye, like a brand new man. He doesn't look like this defeated, beat down person anymore. So it's nice to see him smiling, and he sends pictures of him and his daughter, and it's just wonderful to see them together.
It sounds like you all have bonded somewhat with all of this,
Yeah, he says all the time that we're his angels and we saved his life, and he's so happy for me, Brett, Travis, Deanna, George, and Jeremy, and all of us, that we saved his life. That's how he feels.
That's wild. I mean, he's not like, hey, you helped me out moving stuff. You saved my life.
Yeah.
Well, there was another allegation that he talked about with the child. He was talking about the the potty, and potty training, and he was saying that the potty was outside, like it was outdoors, with the other, and that she would run around, I'm going to say, unclothed, and I found that to be very disturbing too.
Yeah, he did say something about her running around without clothes on a lot, and I thought that was disturbing as well.
Yeah, because
again,
like for me, I don't know about other parents, but for me, I get alerts telling me about certain types of offenders that move anywhere close. I want to be keenly aware, and it's disturbing how much of that's around. And those are just the known ones. So I can't imagine my child running around.
Yeah, you have that factor of it, and then just the factor of all the hazards and her immune system, and she's got, I guess, that feeding tube and everything. Like, there's so many aspects of that situation that's not good.
Yeah, the allegations with John too. I mean, again, like it all disturbs me. There's a lot of red flags. I don't see how, that's another thing that there's been allegations of, that the concern that you're noting, that's just part of a script too.
Yeah. No, I can't fake that. And, it upsets me a lot to see. And I don't even understand how somebody could not love this child enough to want better for her. So if I was in that position and I was Lynette or John and I couldn't provide the best for her, I would love that child enough to give her to somebody who could. I don't even understand why you'd want to cramp her down in that life. Well, that's not love.
Yeah, you've noted that there's need, let's say, that the people that are there, the adults, they have some need, like they need to work on their problems. I'm careful in saying anything mental health wise or anything, again, for myself, being in mental health, but I can definitely see that there is need for sure. There's environmental need, there's interpersonal need, there's a lot of stuff on display there.
Yeah, from the things that Lynette had described to me about her own growing up, there's things that she hasn't resolved from her own past before she's taking on any children. And she has other children that she's mothered before this, but she's never addressed any of her issues growing up. And you're just continuing this cycle. And that's just sad.
You've seen it from the other side too. You actually seen, so we spent time talking about them. You've actually, you've known Jeremy and George as well, like them in the community and everything else. There's been a lot of horrible things said about them from certain people.
Yeah.
What do you think about them, like their impact? Actually, how did you get to know them at first?
They actually stayed in the campground while they were waiting to close on their ranch property. And they came in and we actually took them to their first board meeting. And I was so apologetic for showing them that mess. And they're just wonderful people. And when they first came there, we never watched YouTube. We didn't know who they were. They were just great people. And they came in and they were so nice to everybody. And they were ready to help anybody who needed help. Jeremy often went around with his tractor or chainsaws, and he would help if we needed to borrow any pipes or different plumbing stuff to fix stuff. He would help us. We would do the same with them. And he was just ready to make good changes and be helpful. And he's very knowledgeable. He has a lot of resources. So he was always just ready to help everyone. So for everybody to say such terrible things like that there was no problems in Otter Creek before he arrived is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard, because that place has always been a nightmare, and they all know it.
you've also seen the claims. You've seen his videos. I mean, you've seen the reality that is there, and you see the videos. Now, there's the allegation that all of this, I'm quoting this, there's a theme in a what the hell's reality drama of quote unquote bad neighbors. So they're saying that is all concocted. It's a reality drama. Well, you've seen this for real. Would you say that the videos are an accurate reflection of what you saw going on in Otter Creek?
Yeah, nothing's made up. And a matter of fact, Jeremy and George were very patient and never filmed so many things. And we were always like, aren't you going to say anything or do anything about this? And he's like, no, I don't really want to get involved. Like, he just wanted it all to blow over and go away. And he was more patient than I ever would have been in that position, or anybody would have been. So for people to make these claims that he made all this stuff up and created it, for so long he looked the other way. And it floors me for people to say that, because these are the absolute worst conditions you could have, with neighbors acting crazy and making your life hell. And he was gracious for the longest time. How many things can somebody put up with before enough is enough?
Did you directly see a lot of the crime? I mean, you saw the town, what's happening at the town council and the wildness there. Did you directly see some of the incidents that have been discussed by Jeremy and George?
Oh yeah, it was always something going on, and we saw so many things. Even at like the town hall meeting, there was a huge argument with John and one of the residents outside after the meeting. And that was one of the nights that another gun got pulled on somebody, him and that Chad guy.
Lord.
But he was drunk, and he was outside of the meeting when it ended, and he was screaming at Darlene, and Gail was out there as well, and he was just F-bombing her. And I had never seen anything like that. I went home crying, actually, because I couldn't believe that this is where I live now, and this was what was going on. And so I was so upset. I'm like, I never want to go back to those meetings. I can't stand these people. And I just felt like I was trapped in a hellhole. It upset me terribly. But we've witnessed so many things like that. It was hard, and you couldn't get away from it.
Yeah, I would think with such a small town, like you can't get away from it physically, but also, with I know how small towns and discussion goes. It's not like other people have a lot going on. So if there's chaos, people talk about it quite a bit. So you can't escape that either.
Oh yeah, and Jeremy and George are successful people. And they're successful with the storage units. Why would anybody want to create drama and all this nightmare to make as a way of making money, when they were already making a lot of money, having fun and being generous with other people? Why would somebody shift into the complete opposite and cause themselves all this mess? That makes no sense. And what money are you making when you're spending it on legal fees?
Exactly. That's what I've said. There was the claim that, a certain person and their image being on a thumbnail, that constituted more videos. So, I went through their channel. You can look through the way YouTube allows it. You have video section, and then you have most popular. And I noticed this interesting thing, that none of those videos with that thumbnail even pop up. I just scrolled pages, I was like, down, let's go a little more. Well, we'll go just a little bit farther. And none of those hit there. And like
if you read comments from the viewers, they will always be commenting in there, can we please go back to the storage units and the coin pusher videos? We don't want to see the drama anymore. They're sick of it. So the people that like it are these negative haters. It's not the good people. So if you read through the comments, this is not a good business model. So
it's not a good business model too. And like you said, you're putting out that much money. Think about how much good all of that
right.
money could have done.
And that's money that'll never come back. And you don't even know how much money you would have made with the good stuff. That would be hard to even figure out. But that's time and the stress and the health problems. Like, who would want any of that?
No, I think Jeremy puts on such a good face, on the camera. Like he, I guess you have interpersonal dealings. You've been around them a lot. Can you see the impact of that stress and stuff?
I absolutely can. They are not the same people that they used to be. They have to think about everything different. They don't know who they can trust. You don't see the fun-loving atmosphere that you used to see all the time. You can definitely tell that it's had a negative impact on them. And that must be hard, not only just as individuals, but to be in a relationship and a business relationship. It puts so much stresses on every relationship factor. And yeah, I've definitely seen a huge change, and I pray for them all the time and that they can be strong enough to get through this. But I mean, how much can somebody take, even the strongest person, no matter what face you want to put on, that it affects them a lot.
Yeah, I could see, like, there's been a couple of times when he was discussing Ohio, but especially when he discussed DeThomas's and the appeals court, like that reaction there. You could see the lifting of some stuff, but you saw behind the mask that he wears, everything's good. Hey, I'm calm. And you could see the stress. You could very well. And man, I don't think anybody can imagine that. I try to remind people that all of these are real people, real people dealing with this every day, every hour,
right.
Every minute.
And
none of us can imagine it.
It's no joke at all. And that's why I said recently too, with all the people with the negative hate channels and all that, why don't I see any of these people all this time? None of them have come to help Lynette clean up her yard or put a for sale sign in her yard, look for a different property away from all this. If it's so horrible for her, why haven't they come to do that for her, since they love her so much and they feel so horrible for her?
Yeah, there was a commenter on the Veteran Nation channel when that discussion went on, and they said, why don't people with permission go on that property, clean it up? If there's all this discussion about the environment, and they don't feel that there's a problem, but she has worry about that. Yeah, why don't they take that? Why don't they go on there? 5 of them, spend a few days. I'm sure they can make a real positive impact.
Not one of those people have ever even been to that property. Most of them, I don't even know if any of them have ever met her face to face. Like, the whole thing makes no sense. You have all these people saying all these things who have never visited this town, have never met her. It's nuts.
Yeah, I was thinking, if they think it's so great, well, they should move out to Otter Creek for a few months. Don't you think that would change a lot of people's minds about what exactly it's like?
Absolutely. Or invite her to come live on their property if they feel so bad. And why would you even stay if things are so horrible there? There's property all over the United States, and probably some closer to medical care for Harley. Why wouldn't you have put up a for sale sign and left and went to a better place? Because Otter Creek is not the place to bring an unhealthy child and think you're giving her a better life. So I don't understand that, because people would buy that property.
Yeah, I actually, considering the legal bills and everything else, I kept thinking, man, if nobody else would buy it, I imagine Jeremy would just buy it just to be done with it,
Somebody certainly would.
Yeah.
So none of that makes sense to me. If all these people are so concerned for her and her well-being and everything, why hasn't any of that occurred? The only thing people want to do is start up a channel and get some views, they do exactly what they're accusing Jeremy of doing. They're using this situation so that they can get money, so that they can get views, and it's horrible.
Well, and since that's entered, this stuff has gotten crazier. I was going through the litigation, and again, 4 people just had litigate, counting Jeremy, George, DJ Radis, you had a DUI guy. On top of that, I was like, there's 5 other names that I can think of that potentially might get something as well. And those are just right off my head.
And it's all so frivolous. It doesn't make any sense.
It does when I start looking at it in the terms of hoping to grab a little bit of money. It starts to make a lot of sense. But it doesn't in the terms of trying to help the situation.
Right. Yeah. The only thing that makes sense is people trying to cash in on a bad situation.
Well, you talk about the chaos and seeing fire. Did you actually see a firearm get pulled in that situation? You were talking about over at town, the town meeting.
No, because we left. I was so upset and I was crying. So we left and went home. And I guess it continued on to back at John's property, the rest of what occurred. But no, we went home. I don't want to be any part of that.
Right. Well, how long was that before you ended up in well, I'm going to say in charge, for a hot minute trying to change things?
That had to at least been a year difference, I would say, roughly.
So you watched this chaos play out for that much time, and you still ran for office. That's amazing, too,
Yeah, I felt that I had to do that to help the situation. I never thought that was something I was going to do when I moved there, but if I can do anything to help a situation, I'll put myself out there to try to make it better for other people. I always said I felt like I had to be the glitch in the matrix there to get things going in a better direction.
Did you find that change was actually, did you see change while you were in office? Actually, did you see things going in a positive direction, or did you run into a lot of hurdles?
I could see that it was starting to, but it was going to take so long because I never thought that the mess I walked into was going to be what it was. But the clerk had made such a mess of that office. I don't know how the state didn't come in and shut that town down. It was a complete nightmare trying to sort all that paperwork. It wasn't like you were coming into a regularly ran town or board. You were just coming into the biggest mess you could walk into. So I was having to help do clerk stuff and be a mayor. Like, I had no idea what I was getting into.
It sounds awful. Like when you talk about, hey, I'm glad to be out of that place. I'm glad to be in Tennessee. And, yeah, I can see the reasons. I mean, you didn't have I moved from an area when I talk about Oklahoma, I just didn't like the place. I can't imagine being in an area, like you're describing and running into all that.
Yeah, it was so stressful, and again, that causes so many stresses on your marriage. Everything, it just felt so unhealthy. All the anxiety, all the stress. It was at that point where nothing was healthy. So
you actually, we talked about Jeremy and George and all the stress and, again, the relationship stress, the interpersonal stress that was going on. You've experienced that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot going on, and I was just to the point where I did not feel healthy at all anymore. I moved in there in June of 2020, and that was the longest. What was that, like 3.5 years? That was the longest 3.5 years of my life. I felt like I changed who I was completely. I moved in there healthy, and I left on the other end.
So you had actual, when you say health, are you talking about physical health issues with that? Not prying into your health. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I had, because of stress and all, I had gained a ton of weight, blood pressure high, your cholesterol's high, just everything. You just felt very, very sick every day.
Well, I'm glad you all got out of there. I really hope there is some kind of resolution as we go forward for Jeremy and George. I mean,
Me too.
I don't know how they're, if people are willing to violate orders and police do nothing about it, I don't, what I'm afraid of is the resolution will happen, but that resolution is going to be bad. I really am afraid of that.
I am too. I pray every day there in my prayers, and I just want this to end for everybody involved, but especially them, because I worry about them a lot, and I'll always try to send George Bible verses. And, I feel so bad sometimes that I'm in this great place and, her and Deanna are still back there. And so I'm always thinking of them and hoping and praying for them.
Yeah, though, that at the same time, like none of that's on you. You have to do what's right for you too. I don't know. Sometimes when I see this, my mental health brain kicks in, and I'm like, everybody that's in here, I hear people say, well, if only. And I'm like, that stuff's not on you. You can't if only in the rear view mirror. You have to do what's best for you.
Yeah, that's why I said all I can do at this point is pray over the situation, and I try to do what I can, but I'm so grateful and blessed to be where I'm at now, and I'm starting to feel more healthy as the days go by, and I'm so thankful.
Here's another question. So Jeremy, talked about this before. Jeremy potentially bringing business to Otter Creek. That amount of money, that amount of notoriety could have been a great thing. Did you actually see positive impact like that on not just on individuals, but community as well before everything kind of went crazy and sideways?
Yeah, we had a lot more people coming through the town. People would drive from all over the place just to come visit town hall, and they wanted to see if it was real. And the different neighbors coming out, like at the town hall meetings, you'd have people coming out talking to each other. So everybody was starting to be more chit-chatty, and it was great. Even the people like in Chiefland at Bubba Q's, they would comment how many different viewers were always stopping in and eating at Bubba Q's because Jeremy and George talk about it. So they were making more money based off of Jeremy and George. You had people coming through and going to Cedar Key to spend money. So they would plan these trips and visit Otter Creek and then spend money in Chiefland and Cedar Key. There wasn't really much money they could spend in Otter Creek because the only thing they have is the little corner store. But yeah, there was a lot more traffic in the town. So they were creating all that because people would have never known it if they weren't their viewers.
And I think business, actually, you would have seen more options. As more people are there and more demand, you actually would see. I looked at that, again, as an outsider. I don't see a lot of prospect for people, like occupation-wise. And I keep wondering, like, what do people do there for work? Like, how do you actually make money in that town? It seems like 100 plus people that are almost cut off, with not a lot of option.
Yeah, that's another red flag. Like when we had Shady Oaks Campground, and you'd get some people call you and say they wanted to be a long-term resident. They were going to start their life over. And I'd be like, what do they think they're going to do here? There's no jobs. So that's a red flag.
Right.
No, because you can't start over. Even Lloyd made the comment about there was nothing going on there and it was depressing. People have to drive usually to Gainesville, which could be a 45-minute to hour drive to go for a decent job. And the grocery stores, there's not, they'd have to drive to Chiefland to go shop at Walmart or Winn-Dixie. But if you wanted to go to Publix or Sam's Club, you'd have to go to Gainesville, which 45 minutes to an hour. Everything was so far. Healthcare, for any decent healthcare, you had to go to Gainesville or Ocala. So there's really nothing going on. So you are pretty much stuck.
Yeah, I'm even where we live. You know, we had a few factories out here, and then, you know, under certain administrations, they allowed them to be exported to Mexico and other places, and it shut down. And I remember so many people. Now we have, you know, some industry popping up yet again. We have a Bridgestone and things like that. But with Otter Creek, you know, I think about that as a smaller reflection of what this place could have become. And it again, I keep going back to the word sad, because people that are put in those situations, you know, that's hopeless. I mean, if you're stuck there and you have no options, like how do you live? And then Jeremy comes in, you know, he has money and stuff. Again, I could still see that being a positive. Things could ever be resolved, and, you know, him return to what they wanted to do. They could turn that into something great, I think.
Yeah. So, and yeah, a lot of people even that I talked to that lived around there forever that haven't really traveled or experienced much, that's how they had this, it was like a bubble pressing them down. And it's super depressing.
I had even thought, you know, you were talking about people visiting. For myself, when I first thought about Otter Creek, I thought that, you know, like I'd like to see some of that stuff. But for myself, number one, I wouldn't want to go out there because there'd be accusations, you know.
Right.
They just came down there for that. But also, I would never feel safe. And that's just me as an outsider thinking about stepping foot there momentarily. I wouldn't feel safe with me. Definitely not my kids around, all of that. I can't imagine living in that.
Yeah. Even the dogs running around that place are aggressive dogs. You couldn't even walk to go check your mail because the post office, it's such a small town, you could walk to the post office to check your mail because they only have P.O. boxes, but there's aggressive dogs everywhere. So you couldn't even do that. It's like you were really stuck.
It's just crazy, man. At least everything I hear about the town, it's depressing to me that, like yourself, you went in, you tried to make positive change, and what happens? Oh, well, yeah, for your own mental health, honestly, it sounded like you needed out of that. And then you have other people that could come in and make positive change. And it's almost like I'm not going to say the people there are resistant, but there's certain people that benefit that seem very resistant to change.
Yes. And those certain people that didn't want the change, if you didn't go along with whatever bad dealings, you were the enemy. And then they would just start plugging away, trying to do stuff against you.
Have you ever thought about compiling everything like that happened with Otter Creek? You know, I don't know, like just sitting down and doing video discussions, like a few of them. You know, this is the Otter Creek saga from Madam Mayor, you know, from the beginning to the end. I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of people interested. For myself, you're an interesting person in this because, again, you've seen this from the upper administration all the way down as a resident. You know, you were a business owner. You've seen it from so many different levels. So have you ever thought about just sitting down and, you know, again, these interviews are actually quite amazing. They're quite insightful.
Yeah, but that would be interesting, I bet. I even worked in the post office there as the clerk. I mean...
Yeah, so I mean, so you've worked in business, you've been a business, you've ran a business, you've been in administration. Again, and you knew the people there. I think there also needs to be with this, even not just with this. When I look up Otter Creek, people talk about it being a ghost town. You know, They talk about the structures, and like if you look up any YouTube videos, they're like, "Look what used to be here." There's never any like what's here now.
the town that people forgot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of videos like that. When I wanted to do my research into Otter Creek, that's the one thing that I saw, and imagining people. I mean, there's a lot of towns that are like that, forgotten towns, and if people aren't careful, they won't be there anymore.
Yeah, even Chiefland up the road, they recently had a meeting where they're going to do a housing development in there. And they were talking about like the one end of their town is died out and the businesses have all pulled out. And if you don't get new housing and new businesses in there, that's what'll happen. Your town dies out.
Yeah, you have to have something to draw people in there for
But these
sure.
people are like, we don't want growth. We moved here and we want farms. And it's like, well, nobody's paying taxes on your house. How do you think you're going to keep doing anything? You have to have some kind of growth.
Somebody said you already have the book title for it. Yeah. You could come up with some really good ones, to be honest. Madam Mayor's Adventures, be honest. So, I mean, I definitely, I would read about this, but I also, again, do you have plans to go back?
Yeah, because we still have friends there. So we're going to visit our friends. And then we still have family that live in Chiefland. So we'll definitely be back. I don't know exactly when. I know the people keep asking if we're going to go to the festival that they're having in October, but I don't know that that is a safe place to go to during that.
Right.
So I don't know.
I had people ask that, and I was like, I've tried to temper my response because I don't want to do harm to business that goes there, but I myself, I don't feel safe with that.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like you said, I don't want to mess up anything with other people and their business there, but I don't know if we should go. Under these current conditions, I don't feel safe going, but we have a lot of good friends there still. I mean, Belinda, I like to visit her, and of course, George and Jeremy and Deanna. There's a lot of good people still there. So I still want to visit them, but it's different too when you've left. It's harder to go back.
Do you feel stressed thinking about it? I know I've been in bad situations in my life, and even when I think about it, I think, oh my God, the anxiety. Do you feel that sometimes when you think about all of that crazy and maybe it being around you again?
Yes, I definitely do. And I remember praying to God. I said, it's going to be a miracle if we can get out of here. That's how I felt, that we were so in it, like it would take God to get us out of there.
Yeah, that was another layer of like the video where you all were going in for the RV. I kept thinking, I didn't think about it at first. I thought taping for your safety, but that thought stuck with me for a while because I thought, man, you not only have this layer where you're going in, you're removing things, but the anxiety and the discomfort of being around that, it has to be extreme.
Yes, it absolutely is. And there's certain people, Lynette especially, there's an aura around her that just creates stress. So I don't personally like to put myself next to those type of people.
Right.
So it wasn't something I wanted to do just to do. It was necessary.
How many people filmed that day? There was you had Travis, he had a body cam on. Were there other people filming throughout the day?
Me and Deanna and Travis.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering, like, all of the, again, I very much 100%, like you said too, if it's not on video, it didn't happen. That's been Levy County's statement, and I would think the person living on that property, they would actually want that taped for their benefit as well.
You would think, because the taping is for everybody, not just one-sided. Yeah. So, and I wish we actually would have started filming a lot of different stuff in that town earlier than we did, because when we used to call the sheriff's office out to the campground when we had problems, they never did anything about anything. So I feel like if we would have been filming then, maybe we would have gotten more done, but we didn't. But there was a lot of things we had to call them out for, and they didn't do anything. We even had a
What?
guy shooting a gun out of his RV, and they didn't do anything.
Oh no. Have they always been like the videotaper? It doesn't happen. Have they always stuck with that?
Pretty much. I mean, the whole time we were there, they never did anything.
Yeah, I'd wondered if it was even with video. We've seen video of certain things happen, and they still didn't do anything.
Right.
So
Does it really matter?
yeah.
But I think at this point, you're just more or less taping it so you can show you didn't do anything.
Yeah, you say in retrospect there were certain. Do you have any certain specific incidents you'd be like, man, I wish I had that on tape? That way.
Yeah, that first meeting that we took Jeremy and George to in the town hall, nobody was recording back then. And that was like the biggest mess of a town hall meeting. I wish somebody would have been recording that. I said, oh, the audio just happened to be missing from that meeting when I took office. We were hoping to actually get to hear that meeting, but somebody had taken a truck full of stuff out of there, the old mayor, and I guess the recordings were in there. I wish we would have recorded that meeting. I wish we would have recorded several of the people that we had to throw out of the park with the chaos. And
do you think people are on better behavior? It still seems crazy when people are being taped. I'm sometimes amazed by the behavior that people are willing to showcase. Do you think though there is better behavior even with that on tape than before?
Yeah, actually. I'm still amazed at what they still do in the camera, but it is better than what they would have done with it off.
That's wild to me to think about. And it's been wild for me to think about too when people are filming themselves and some of the stuff we've seen them do with them knowing not that they're being filmed, but with them going out. Again, I think of John Cook, for example, and some of the stuff he did while he was recording.
Yeah, that blows my mind. That one recording I saw that he did in particular, like, you've got to be kidding me. It's just what I kept saying the whole time. They're their own worst enemy.
Yeah, and I don't know. I hate, I know you, I know Travis, all of you folks, you try to avoid drama. You've said that many times. Hey, I'm not in this for drama. I'm not trying to stir something up. But at the same time, this is very much public interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And public's, I think it's safety of, public first of all, but I think it's the safety of specific individuals as well. Jeremy and George, again, I think what you're talking about, I think it goes to the direct need. And again, I feel like for very, very real that they are in danger. I think they're screaming to the wind, as it were. Hey, please help us with this problem.
Right.
And it looks like they get nothing.
And I never would have dreamed this would go on for so long. I'm constantly, I can't believe it. And I say that all the time. When will this end? And then another thing happens and I'm like, it's just insane.
It's not going to end anytime soon. I know. I don't mean to sound all negative in that or anything, but you can just see, again, it's branching out and it's getting crazier. So I feel like some of the chaos is, even though it's been going on a while, this new chapter, if this were a book, this would be a brand new chapter somewhere in the middle of the book.
Yeah, every single time you think that then that new chapter comes out and you're like, it's a suffocating feeling to think that it's never going to end.
Yeah, and like you said, people, when they're watching it, they get tired of watching it. They want return to different kind of content and stuff.
Yeah.
Thinking about that as this is their lives. That's a horrifying thought.
It's not even healthy for the people watching it because they get so involved in it, and then they're consuming themselves with all this negative stuff. That's what I tell some of the people that email me the different things. I tell them, just quit watching it. I said, I don't watch it. It's just negative. And if you would quit feeding that, it would die up. But
Yeah,
they can't. They just say they can't.
yeah. I tell, there are certain things that will make them mad. Like you stick to the cases that are going on. You stick to anything that connects to those. Again, like there's been. Oh, one other thing you mentioned, I do want to note this too. So you mentioned meth heads and items being stole off property that you were told about. Could you detail that a little more?
Well, it started out, the first people they had working on their property were Kenny Jr. And I know a lot of people have seen them in some of the videos recently. The youngest son, Christian, when he was arrested and the cops were not so nice to him. Well, they had them working on their property, and they used to joke that it was cheap labor, and they're known meth heads, and they would steal stuff off the property, and she would be complaining that they were supposed to be helping working, but when they found different stuff, they stole it. And they just had so many different groups of these druggies. Then they had that couple that stole a turtle and a bunch of other stuff, and she was all over posting on the different Levy County groups about it. Then you had Jamie and her boyfriend there, and at that time they said that they were just shooting off guns in the RV, these two meth heads. And I'm like, what about the neighbors living all around there?
Right.
There's been so many different people, and she would post all over online about people stealing her leggings and her milk maker and all these different things. Yeah, and then she actually blamed me and Brett because she said that she had to have that one couple move in to help clean up the yard because we didn't. So it was our fault.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it sounds like you tried to do everything possible to help out. You even went out there to clean up, and you still... I find the nicest people, though, that try to intervene and try to calm chaos. They are typically the people that receive the worst treatment.
Yeah. So, and even now we're more reserved with, a lot of people want to meet us and stuff, and you don't know who you can trust anymore. Right. So even your way of thinking gets changed, and I don't want to have to think that way, but you do, because you don't want to get caught up in another mess.
That's sad. That's sad that it potentially impacts other people in need. But again, that's what we see with Jeremy and George too. They've talked about being more reserved and wondering exactly who they can have contact with, what might happen with that, and I think that's a very sad reality.
It is, and you really have to keep your circle small because you don't know who you can trust. And it's a terrible way to live.
What do meth heads do with a turtle that they steal, by the way?
I have no idea. Maybe they probably traded it for some meth or something. I mean, you see all these Florida man things. Have you ever seen? I remember one time we were watching a cop show, and one of them had a little gator shoved down their pants. And I'm like, what? Do you know what that gator could do down your pants? Hello.
We watched a clip yesterday on Megan Fox's channel. Like, speaking of crazy people, there's this lady that calls the police because she had tried to buy crack rock, and she was like, I tried to buy that. They gave me plaster. I want my $20 back. And the lady she called that on, she was like, don't disrespect my child. We don't sell drugs. I'm a prostitute. I was like, oh my Lord. So Yeah, I mean, drug addicts do some crazy freaking things. That's one thing in that, of everything. I was like, okay, milk maker, other things. Maybe you could sell that, but a tortoise?
Yeah, like that's an awkward thing to take.
I don't, I always wonder, I always wonder what happened to all the turtles anyway. There were turtles that supposedly were given to people, they never came back. And I always, that's one chapter in my mind. I think I could answer that, but at the same time, I want to, know the other answer. Like, what happened to all those turtles?
I don't know. It's like that night that we had to go over there to pick John up off the floor. That was a cooler night, and they would put the turtles inside totes and put them in the shed with heaters. So these turtles would be in the totes, and they couldn't even put their legs out of their shell because they'd be shoved in a tote.
Oh, no.
That doesn't seem very humane to me.
No.
But that's what they do during the winter time because it's so cold.
That sounds like animal neglect. Did you see any other instances of potential animal neglect like that?
Just that it was so filthy. The green water and the feces everywhere. It just wasn't good living conditions. And I thought when you had a rescue that there was certain criteria you had to meet, and for it to be clean, for it to be open to people to look at, to have a veterinarian and paperwork. Like, I remember when that turtle was missing, she didn't have the person's information of where the turtle came from to call the person. You should have records when people give you a turtle of all their information.
Yeah, I thought there were a lot of, I'm not going to say strict standards because I did watch The Tiger King. So that was, but I did think there were some standards, and especially after you have something like a Tiger King, that really brings a lot of eyes, you would think that it would be stricter in the aftermath.
You would definitely think, but that made no sense to me. But it was always very dirty, and it seemed like, I just don't understand why you would have that with a sick child. And if this is something that takes a lot of time and money away from what you should be doing with your child and spending time with your child, why would you have that? That doesn't make sense either.
I also wonder about waste, removal, because of the way, let's say the bodily waste disposal. That can't be good. Like, that can't be good at all. Like, when you all were walking through, when you hit the property and there's mud puddles, I kept thinking, oh my God, I hope that is a mud puddle, because
Right.
That seems awful.
And it was very wet around where the RV was. There was that one cord laying in the water. You really don't know what it is. And even when she had that couple staying on the property, she was posting on the different Facebook pages that they had bottles of urine that they were keeping outside the shed, that these people were. So I'm just like, what is going on this property? Like,
That sounds like some Howard Hughes stuff, He was keeping bottles of urine around. And, I've noticed that anybody that has had contact, though, you talk about yourself or Lloyd or, the 18 or whomever, like, they all have these horrible stories. And all of those stories, they revolve around, really, I'm going to say two people. And,
yeah,
that should be telling, right? You would think
very.
So.
That should be very telling. And even Jeremy was so nice to have offered a ride to the airport for those 3 kids after all the mess they caused for them. He was still nice enough to offer and have a ride set up to the airport for them. I couldn't even believe that.
Yeah, when I watched that, Jeremy's expressions were so telling. But it's like you've talked about, though. You feel this need to help people. Like when they reach out to you and they're begging for help, even if they're horrible people, or you feel like they've
I
done you
know.
wrong. You
I
want
feel
to.
bad. I want to help. Even when they were supposed to take George and Deanna were supposed to take those kids to the airport. And when I found out about that, I was worried for their safety. And I said, absolutely, me and Brett are going to ride there. You're not going to go by yourself with them. That's crazy. I don't feel comfortable allowing you guys to do that. So I offered us up to be part of that too, because I didn't think it was safe for them.
So you offered to help with the transport of the kids, or well,
Yeah,
I shouldn't say kids, 18-year-olds. That's why I try to, because I'll say kids otherwise. That's why I say 18-year-olds. But you
yeah.
offered
So
to,
I
you offered.
did, even though, I was to be honest, I was so glad when it fell through,
Yeah.
but I couldn't let them go do that by themselves. I was worried for their safety. So,
Well, there was an interesting chapter in that. I've talked about this a little bit, but there were the other lawsuits that have come up. About using image of Miss Preston, on thumbnails. But it was fascinating because the same guy writing those, he said, "You don't know the story." He wrote me an email, and he was like, "Here are pictures of how this actually played out," and it had pictures of her with the 18-year-olds, and they wanted me to broadcast those. And I was like, wait a minute, you want me to put their picture online, but you told me I couldn't use their image. What's going on?
that makes a
So,
lot of sense.
well, it goes back to the, again, the chaos and the nastiness. And I feel like that's either entrapment or, that's them wanting. They want the picture and they want this other stuff as long as it's on their terms. They don't
Yeah.
want the actual story being told. They want their story being told.
Yep.
I don't know, but anyway, do you feel like we've missed anything tonight? Is there anything we
There's
should add?
always so many layers when you
Yeah,
start thinking, like you said, knowing all the players' names. And I know sometimes when we're talking to somebody and we're like, long story short, there is no long story short here. It's
right.
it's got so many branches coming off of it. There's always something for another
Well,
time,
well, one day
unfortunately.
I'd like to sit down with you and talk about from the beginning. And just not to have like this specifically. I wanted to talk about the Lloyd, the incidents there, because there were all these accusations, in my opinion, very unfounded accusations. I thought you went
Mhm.
in there, you had good intent, you were trying to tape for your safety, but I wanted to bring that stuff up because, again, there were threats of lawsuit. But there's just
Yeah.
so much more, like you say.
Yep. There's always so much more.
Well, we'll definitely have to, one day sit down and I think if you're game for it, one day we'll do a from the beginning, and just
Yeah.
talk about the impression and yourself. I mean, again, you're an interesting person in this. I think you should do more videos. I think you should talk about like not the chaos of Otter Creek or anything, but just your impressions of Otter Creek. Working these places, doing different things because you have a unique mind, and maybe that would shed light on this isn't just crowd. They're just people there. There are regular people that are involved
Yeah.
in all this madness.
That's a good idea.
All right. Well, I'm going to hit super chats. You can hang if you'd like, or
All
if you
right.
need to go. Okay.
Yep.
There's
I'll
not.
say good night.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been
oh
great talking to you.
yeah, you do great interviews. Yeah, I mean,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, you do. You actually do a very great interview, and I enjoy the interviews. So we'll definitely have to set one up for the future, and talk about some stuff on there if you want to.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to hit these if we want to jet. Like I said, I
All right.
appreciate you coming on.
All
And
right. Thanks.
all right, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right. So, Madam Mayor, I think Madam Mayor, you need to go and check out her channel for sure. Her channel with everything that's gone on, it's criminally undersubbed in my opinion. That's one of the things that you see with people that live stream, though. If you live stream a lot, the way YouTube works, you don't get as many subscribers as if you just drop video after video. But they're not, when you look at what they talk about and you look at what they've done there, like, I don't feel any of these allegations that have been made. I think they tried to go in. They actually tried to do positive things. They tried to help out. Again, that last, I'm calling it a chapter. That last chapter with everything with Lloyd, I felt that they, as well as many other people, they've tried to do good. But unfortunately, in situations like this, even when you try to do good, things seem to always turn out like chaos. Ugh. But anyway, I'm going to hit super chats here. 1 second. So, Dark Side Harley Girl, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Fallen Hero, too. As always, thank you for the gifted membership. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you folks that showed up. We had 2,800 people that actually showed up for the interview there. And again, I want to sit down. Like, when I sat down for this stuff, there are specific reasons for the interviews we've done. I've never just felt like we could sit down and start out from the beginning with Madam Mayor. And Madam Mayor, I'm serious about the fact I find her point of view fascinating because she has done so much in this area that has gotten so much discussion. She's worked there. She's been involved with all the residents. So she has that. I also want to. I don't want the people of Otter Creek to be cast in such a negative light. Because when people see it, like a person like myself on the outside, I think, my God, what a chaotic place. I wouldn't want to be there. And it's unfortunate because I imagine many other people feel the same way too. Sandra D, thank you for the gifted membership there. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Also, we've had new things that have come up in the courtroom. We had the judge yesterday. We had the stuff with that. So there's other stuff. I guess we'll cover that tomorrow. Like I say, this stuff, I don't see it stopping anytime soon. I think it's going to get crazier. I think it's going to get much, much crazier. And from the outside, looking at it, it's like, wow, this is insane just watching it. But remember, again, every time we watch this, they're real people. They're dealing with horrible situations. They're dealing with stress. They're dealing with that stress doesn't just hit you mentally, it hits you physically. Like Madam Mayor said, moving out to Tennessee, it's been a breath of fresh air. And you have to wonder, like, could Otter Creek have been that? Like, there's no reason that Otter Creek has to be any different than a small town in Tennessee. There's no reason whatsoever. It needs change. It needs business. All the key components are there. You have a guy, again, as much clout that Jeremy has as far as subscribers, reach. There could be so many positives. Like hopefully once all this mess is untangled, you'll actually see that yet again. I mean, you can't, and that's not Jeremy's fault, by the way. Like when I'm saying that, when you're spending $100,000+, it's kind of hard to do for others. And like Madam Mayor said, you make your circle small. I get that. I very much get that. Even for my dealings with people on YouTube and stuff, I keep a small circle. I have people that that I like to interact with. But even on that, you know, when you're talking about in real life, where you have people that could potentially, they're not just doing reputational harm. They could do actual harm to you. It's just frightening. Anyway, Rena, thank you for the gifted membership. I appreciate that. Thank you. PDW, thank you for the gifted membership as well. So I'm going to give all of you love right there. You know, again, I just, gifted memberships are probably my favorite thing that channels have, because it brings people, it is your channel, you know. You make the channel work. Otherwise, it's people just yelling to the wind. So thank you for being here. Ken, thanks for the 2. What the hell's family? Hasn't filmed her. Only the authorities. Yeah, that's one of the things that's that I wanted to make clear with the questions that I asked Madam Mayor. It's just like with Veteran Nation. I just bluntly ask questions. You know, there have been accusations about them. Hey, they're saying that you want to incite people to do this, or you're invading property. You know, this was the outcome that you wish for in this scripted drama, according to them. Like, what do you think about that? And of course, you know, it's so insane. And I also wanted to ask, when you look at Jeremy and George, and you look at Otter Creek, and everything that you saw play out, is that mirrored in videos? Because they're saying that's just a reality drama script. Okay, well, you have these people that are on the outside of that, and they're saying, no, you know, this is the chaos. Because, you know, a lot of people have trouble believing that this could be reality. And unfortunately, the court documents and everything else, they 100% back it up. Oh, it's definitely reality, and it's definitely crazy. Yoda, what's up, Yoda? Thanks for the 2 there. They all got a case of diabetes, just like Line Night. It is fascinating to see some, again, I detach sometimes in my wording. You know, this is fascinating. And it is, but like I said, at the key of it, it deals with real people. And it is fascinating, though, to see the narrative changes and how everyone else is to blame. Yoda, also, thank you for the gifted membership. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Tease T, what's up, Tease T? Thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. By the way, let me note this. Tease T got me thinking about this. If for some reason you missed last night's Megan Fox live stream, definitely watch that, because it was really funny. So behind the scenes, you know, Megan goes live and she's taping her headphones to her head. And I got to watch that go on for about 5 or 6 minutes before it went live. And it was the funniest thing I think I've ever seen. Her headphones broke, which is not funny. But she was like, I got to get on here. I need headphones. I'm going to tape them. And she was like, they're all wonky. They won't sit right. Maybe I should give myself a tape, like a chin strap. So you should definitely catch that for sure. I love it. Melissa, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for your membership. Welcome to Tugs, though. So I appreciate you. Thank you very much, dude. Melissa, also, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Like, I appreciate you all. Like, and again, since we do live streams mostly, you folks are really the way that the channel gets backed. So I appreciate that. Share these. Do you like the interviews, by the way? I think the interviews, they've gone really well. I think the interviews with, again, with like Madam Mayor. I think Madam Mayor interviews very well. What do you think about those? You know, we've interviewed a few other folks. I would actually like to sit down and interview Travis in some ways. You know, I'd like to ask him some of the stuff about, and he'd probably be game for this too. I don't have communication with Travis. You know, we supposedly all communicate, and we all do this craziness, but yeah, that's as far from truth as you can get. You know, even with Madam Mayor, you know, we had very limited interactions. I like Madam Mayor. They seem like good people. But I think talking to Travis, I would like to hear about some more of the positives that he would like to bring to Otter Creek too. I'd like to ask him about the stuff with Lloyd and his perspective, you know, what was going on there. But also, on top of that, I would actually like to spotlight a little bit more of the positive. We did that a little bit on the interview with him and Wes. But unfortunately, the positive gets overshadowed by so much of the crazy. So I think it needs a little more love too. Studio Vlog channel, thanks for the 5 there. What's the bet? Lloyd's fridge was the only one working. Hey, that's from the text messages that we saw coming in. That again we went over it in 2 live streams. Last night we finished off that on Megan's channel, but we started that here. From the statements coming from Miss Preston, I would say that, yeah, that's a great possibility. You know, they kept talking about things being broken, all of the electrical issues, you know, how they had to use Lloyd's camper to do this or that or the other because nothing would work. And it does make you wonder. I also wonder, again, going back to those messages, I wonder how you can run a turtle rescue or a turtle sanctuary when you're talking about diving, or dumpster diving rather, for food. I mean, how is that good? You know, God knows what you come in contact with in that. And I have tarantulas. I have a centipede, some tarantulas, and other stuff. And to say how bad some of that stuff could impact an animal, there's a point to this with the turtles. The tarantulas that I have, if you give them tap water, it can kill them because tap water is so bad. So things that are coming out of dumpsters, there's no control over what that is. Not even just talking about food conditions. You know, the food condition alone, that could be devastating. But what else is in a dumpster? Like, what else might be added to that? What kind of chemicals? What kind of unknown elements? Even when you wash that stuff off, you know, that could have dire consequences. And if that stuff is indeed true and you don't have food for the animals, how do you actually maintain food for self? Excuse me, I light my cigar. It's a little nub now. Jesse, thanks for the 5 there. It's not worth the hassle for the fridge. We can crowdfund a new fridge in no time for Lloyd if he needs one. I mean, that's actually a good point there. I wonder in a way. Here's the only question I guess I would have with that. What about the next Lloyd? What about them and their property? You know, if I understand, like, he doesn't need the stress. You know, so for him, whatever he decides, I may have opinions on something, but I never second guess, you know, like if Jeremy does something, Lloyd, Madam Mayor, or anything. If I have an opinion on that, that's one thing. But if they, you know, they remove themselves from chaos, they decide that, hey, it's not worth it, 100%. They do whatever is in the best for them. The one thing, like I said, I do wonder about, though, what's the message in saying, yeah, sure, you can just grab this thing that belongs to someone else? Because there's been quite a few people that have been captured in this this net of insanity, as it were. You almost hate to see that, you know, go again. He was bringing up that he had receipt for it. Now, he had proof that he bought that from Amazon. He was pulling that up to showcase. But on top of that, Madam Mayor talked about how, you know, they had moved that before. So they actually knew that specific item. So, I mean, there was plenty of proof that it's theirs, And in a way, I do wonder about the condition of it, too. Like, when you get it back, like, what exactly is inside that refrigerator? That might be like opening a portal to some nightmare world, But yeah, I mean, you have a good point there, for sure. Melissa, thanks for the 5 there. We need more people like Madam Mayor. Thanks, Tug, for sharing your story. Indeed, I think one of the positives that you could take from this is you do need people that are willing to help people. That's one of the reasons that when talking about the 18-year-olds and talking about removing them and trying to get them on a plane, I wanted to take time to say, hey, despite the chaos, I have to commend somebody that tries to help despite that. Because I can't say I would do that. I don't know if I would want to subject myself to this. People that have tried to do harm, that have tried to damage reputation and on. I mean, with Madam Mayor talking about, again, going out and trying to say, can you imagine you helping out people to that level? You going, you're trying to help them out while they're telling you about, this is my background, this person and John Cook, they make accusations about them. Again, they have a little kid with them, and you try to help them. You try to find them resources so they can pay bills that they say they can't. You go around, you try to remove things from their property. You try to better their lives. In fact, you try to save one of their lives, only to find that you are on the receiving end of some type, that level of nasty. It takes a lot to go back to that property and try to actually help Lloyd. Like, that's one of the things I think I would want to commend with Madam Mayor, too. I would never want to step foot on that property, ever. In fact, for myself, even being an outside observer, like I said, I think it would be awesome in a way to be able to go to a festival with many of you folks and have fun. The people that are at Otter Creek or other folks. But I, as an outside observer, I don't feel safe with that. I definitely wouldn't feel safe after what happened to Wes and his child. I wouldn't feel safe having children around that. Oh no. So, I mean, I commend them, like I said. See, Fitch. Sorry, I'll mess up your first name. I appreciate you, though. I have a very bad habit of butchering names. I think that's a Southern thing. I think butchering names is part of it. So, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. Thank you very much for that. I very much appreciate it. Thank you. Kim, thanks for the 5 there. Just my opinion. The turtles and tortoise are in the refrigerator. That's why no one could look in it. I don't know. I think I know what happened with the turtles. I think it's something that, well, when you look at everything else in the story, I think you could come to a certain conclusion about what might be going on with the turtles. But at the same time, I would like to hear, when I say I'd like to know what happened with the turtles, I'd love to know what the narrative is of where the turtles are. Like, that's a question of, again, if you run a rescue and animals disappear from a rescue and you don't know what's happening to them, you expect some type of explanation, right? I mean, again, we're not talking about this also isn't a private affair. Like, the turtle thing is not actually a private, like, hey, this is happening on my property. You're getting into my personal business. No. They run a turtle rescue. They have animals that, again, they disappeared. They supposedly were given to somebody else. And the way that the statement that I saw in that, I thought the turtles would come back. That's the way the statement was, I mean. I'm not saying I kind of expected the turtles to come back, but the statement made me believe that it was implying that the turtles would come back. So if the turtles aren't coming back, it's just like the firearm thing. You know, the firearm and people that I don't know their name, but they sold me something. You know, in that, remember the whole firearm John Cook statement was, yeah, no, I don't actually, I have a 9. I used to have a revolver, but that revolver, well, it got sold to somebody. Who? Well, I don't remember. Oh, you have a revolver? Yeah, I bought a revolver from somebody a few days ago. That was just some guy. Not to be confused with a YouTuber, just some guy. There is a YouTuber by that name. No, there's some guy. Yeah, I feel like it's the same thing with the turtles. But the turtles, again, we're not talking about personal business. We're talking about an animal rescue. And there are rules, no matter how bad. You know, the Tiger King did point out, like, Tiger King's crazy if you've never watched that. It is absolute insanity. But what it pointed out was all the flaws. This was brought up many times with animal rescue, you know, with animal sanctuary. What actually goes on? Like, what rules are there? Because another thing that was alleged and people were so horrified by, there were animals being fed garbage. Like, that was one of the allegations with that whole series. I don't know if you've never watched it. Like, some of the items, again, publicly, that people were so horrified by. We see parallels in that. And you think, well, in that situation, if that was bad, like if you're feeding animals trash food, potentially expired. He was feeding them expired meat. You know, but if you're feeding animals expired food and everything else, yeah, people see a problem in that, and you should. Kat, thanks for the 23 months. Your interviews are fantastic. You do a good job. Thank you for that. I try to do a good interview, you know. But I sat down. One of the things that I noticed from other people that do interviews, some people are just great interviewers. But some people, when they go in, they have a script that they follow. Now, I'm not saying, like, I have talked to a few people that, because of legal aspects, for example, they don't want to acknowledge or answer certain things. And I do ask about that. I ask every guest, are there certain subjects that you don't want to answer? And I don't think Madam Mayor would care if I said this. I asked her that, and her answer is no. You know, we're an open book on things. And I didn't know, you know, with communications or anything else, I didn't want to probe too deeply into communications with Lloyd. There have been certain things that he said publicly, that communications with her, I wanted to see if, you know, he had also said some of those things as well. But I didn't want to probe too deeply into their private communications, for example. So I didn't go down that route heavily. But also, I don't script. You know, scripting, for me, it just doesn't work. It makes it dry. And again, certain people are very good, like Madam Mayor. She does a very good interview. Tease T, thanks for the 50 there. Thank you, Tease T. Appreciate that. Love the interviews. We need more positive content. You do a great job. Tug Thugs Unite. I think some of it, you know, I like to highlight some of the positives. I don't think there's a lot of positive in this. I think it's an important thing. It's branched out into people I know. I didn't know Jeremy Hales. I never had contact with him before. I've had limited contact really in covering that. But, you know, it's been fascinating because even in covering it, there were demands made of many people that I know. Again, co-hosts with Megan Fox. Her being told that her Legos, like it's implied that there could be some kind of action against her because she created Legos. DUI guy. Again, I like Larry. I've known Larry for a hot minute now. And as far as everything with Larry is concerned, again, him being dragged in, that makes it more personal. Plus, for myself, again, I got the same demand. If I would not have gone in, like I said, I didn't want to get involved in a frivolous lawsuit because it's a time suck and it's a money suck. Even if you're 100% in the right, it is still a time and a money suck. But I got the same demand too. They very much planned on adding in whomever. That would have included, like I said, I would have been right there with it. If I, for a thumbnail, and again, the same guy, he even noted in that letter that I had taken that thumbnail. Why not cover this? While also, again, asking me to cover and to put up pictures of Miss Preston with the 18-year-olds. Like, he sent me a letter with that, and he tagged in another channel. So just to note that. I actually, I think that is, I'll ask Larry about that to see if that's actually, if that's something that could be brought up too. Because 100%, if they're, again, they made a demand of me, just like him. He went in with I believe, he made changes while he was out doing other things. He changed 6 thumbnails. He didn't change 3. I think he missed those. That would be my opinion there. But he did not want to engage in frivolous lawsuits. But he was dragged in. And I'm curious, like, with them sending out emails and adding pictures and asking the same people that they threatened to bring up her name, to use her likeness. I'm curious if that works into the action. So I'll ask him. I'd like to ask him live. When he gets back, that'll be interesting. Fake Laura Owens, by the way. Thank you for the 5. Hello, Melissa Joy. I give her help anytime. I miss fake Laura Owens, by the way. I do. Megan always says, hey, missed you out there. I do like that account. I would cover more of Clayton Eckerd, Laura Owens with the madness there. But I have to be in the right mindset to do it. Ugh. What's up, Maria Rye? Thanks for the 2 there. That fridge is John's pew-pew storage. Just saying. I am curious, in that document where they talk about retrieving the firearm and it being hidden, I wonder, is this like a game of Clue? Could we guess where the firearm was hidden? Was it out by the chicken coop, or the chicken shack, or whatever the hell? Where exactly was it? I did like the word barn dominium, by the way. I think I'm going to refer to that building from now on as the barn dominium. I did actually like that. That is a nice description. That is not loaded and negative, in my opinion, in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it makes it sound much nicer than I believe that it is. So, yeah, instead of being like shed A, shed B, whatever, there's the barn dominium. I've been referring to domicile. What's up, Ray? What's up, Ray, man? Love to Ray, by the way. I hope everybody gives some love to Ray. He deserves it, man. Thanks for the $2.99 there. How you guys? Been busy? Hope you're well. Oh, yeah, very much so. Everybody, though. And give some love to Ray. He's a good guy. And Fake Laura Owens, thanks for 5. There's a subject I do not want to discuss publicly. Me and Melissa Joy in a hot tub tonight. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. That's a subject you don't want to discuss, but tonight. There are more messages, again, from a certain jokeless. There's some stuff to cover with that. I think tomorrow, unless something changes, Megan Fox will be on. We'll talk about new documents. It has been fascinating. If you ever go in and you look if you look up all the cases that have been attached, if you want to really get a view of the chaos, you want to understand it just on the legal level, go and look up all of the stuff that has been brought up in court cases alone. Like, look at all of these things that have been just brought up and dropped. Because when you go and, you look this up on Levy County, you can look up court documents. In fact, I would encourage you, even if we do read every court document or try to, but I would still encourage you to look them all up on your own. Make your own decisions on things that are going on. You don't have to like anybody that's involved. 100%. You make up your own mind. But I would encourage you to go look up all of that stuff just because of the insanity. Imagine this is your life too. Like, that's one thing that's really difficult. Imagine this being your life. Not a story on YouTube. Not a content creator that puts out daily videos. But imagine this being your life. Imagine that you picked up property and all of this happened to you. It was also fascinating that Madam Mayor, when she talked about everything that happened, she talked about, filming and how Jeremy didn't film at first. He allowed so many things to transpire. Because you hope that this is just some kind of crazy in the moment. Maybe that stuff will pass. People will come to their senses. I mean, you hope things go away, but after a hot minute, you have to start filming. And a lot of that, again, a lot of the filming has been for Levy County telling you, if you don't film, none of it happens. But anyway. Also, what's up, Laura B? How you doing there? Thanks for the 22 months. Larry was in chat. We'll come again tomorrow. Yeah, Larry. See, I like Larry. I've known Larry for, like I said, a hot minute online, and the interactions have been fun. We've done a few interviews here and there, but one of the things I can remember, he didn't want this action. The way that it plays out, the way that it goes forward, when people are sitting out there saying that he's whatever, because they'll make accusations about him too. Remember, he was doing something else. Like, he was on vacation. He's been covering other stories. So they dragged him back into this mess. Like, don't you find that crazy? Like, for people that say that they don't want their name brought up, they went after a known YouTuber. They went after somebody to put subscribers into perspective. I don't know what his subscriber number is right off the moment. Actually, I'll look this up because there's a point on this. So I was looking up the statistics on YouTube success, and you realize that you have a better chance statistically of being able to go and get drafted, or be part of the NBA draft than you do to hit 300,000 subscribers. So, DUI Guy, the reason I mention that is because DUI Guy, he's known. He has 462,000 subscribers. He's closing in on 500,000 subscribers. He had moved on with his coverage. He was talking about other stuff. He would, every now and then, like, he would bring up like, look at this. I want to, for the sake of this discussion, I want to put this here. So Larry's coverage, this was latest. I mean, look at all the videos. Look at what he's talking about. Trooper Proctor, Rookie Cop, Alan Jackson, 1 and 2, Trooper Proctor, all that. Jennifer McCabe, another judge there, another thing with him. Do you see? So this is going out months. He actually hasn't talked about this case in a while. and yet he's dragged back in. You know, if you look, you can actually look at his playlist. He's pretty good with playlists and adding them. And if you look at his playlist, let's see what the latest one was. So it had been around 3 months since he had talked about anything. And then he gets this demand out of the blue. The demand also, if you look at it, I found it, I don't know what his demand actually looks like, but my demand, it doesn't say, it's an implied or else. There's not actually the take this down or we will sue you. It reads as, give me 1 minute here. It says, quote, the thumbnail of your July 20th video includes a photograph of my client, I'm going to say Miss Preston. It uses Michelle Preston. Actually, I'll say Michelle Preston. I just said it. So, which gives rise to claims under Florida Statute 540.08. I ask that you remove the photo without delay. Best regards. Now, that doesn't say do this or else. But you get the feeling that you know where that's going to lead to. And I'm curious if the letter sent to Larry looks just like that too. Because it says, well, you know, it gives rise to claims. Okay. I ask that you remove them. Okay. Well, again, there's no follow-up saying, or else. Like I said, so actually let me note something after that too. So as far as, then I get a letter, like I noted, that has myself and another channel tagged onto it, but this is a letter to me. And it is entitled Airport Photos. It has, let me count them, 9 attachments. It actually has 9 pictures of Miss Preston, along with, I'm going to guess that that's the little child and the 18-year-olds. And again, it's asking for coverage on that. Isn't that, and it asked me, are you covering the quote-unquote airport photos issue? It's asking for coverage there. Maybe we'll discuss all of that. Actually, maybe we'll do that tomorrow. I don't want to add all of that to this. I'm just talking for a minute. But anyway, we're going to end here. I've talked for a few minutes. After an interview, I like to talk for a few minutes. But I appreciate you all. And yeah, we'll call it here. Thank you.